Cutting-edge startup models are pushing traditional businesses to be more innovative, to re-examine their old models, and to create new efficiencies. So, how can large organizations maintain a drive for innovation in the face of competition like this? Here to tell us more, I am pleased to introduce the moderator of our next panel on innovation in enterprise-scale financial institutions. Please welcome Thomas Martin, the Managing Director of GFT Technologies.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, also a warm welcome from my side. The panel of today is about innovation in enterprise-scaled companies and banks, financial institutions, and I'm quite excited to be the moderator of this panel today. Yeah, to have some logistics in the beginning. Though we have a 20 minutes discussion, and I would like to ask you all to really, during the discussion, write down your questions and your topics you want to know, because we have two real experienced experts on the stage where you can then ask your questions at the end of the panel, and this is, I think, a unique opportunity you should use. So let me introduce my two panelists. Just short words, we come to the details later. First hand, Mr. Francesc Fatula from Banc Sabadell, and he's the chief of digital transformation and innovation in that bank. Please welcome him. Hello. And second but not last, Mr. Dr. Martin Setzer from the State Bank of Baden-Württemberg, so Landesbank Baden-Württemberg. He's a former COO and member of the board in that bank, and now advisor for the digital agenda of that bank. Please welcome him. Hello. So, in the very beginning, I think innovation and FinTech is something, nobody would put a panel up for, because this is quite clear. And but most of us, and also maybe the main people here in the audience, would question innovation and big institutions like banks, or how this fits together, and what are the challenges there. Therefore, to really give you a short introduction inside of that, we asked Mr. Setzer about how to give us just a quick intro about the challenges and about what we are talking about in this field. And therefore, I would like to ask you just to start up with your thesis and your introduction.
Okay, thank you. 5 statements, brief from my side. First of all, innovate or capitulate. I think innovation is the key success factor, or the ability to innovate, put it this way, is the key success factor for banks moving forward. Some statements from some gentlemen. You don't need to agree on all those statements, but my point is here, and we come back to it at the end. Either we are able, as an industry, to innovate, or we should capitulate. Now, why is that, and what has changed so dramatically? I believe it's the speed and the degree of disruptiveness of transformations which have changed. That has not only begun today from this gentleman here. For the non-German speakers, what he is saying is there's no reason for someone to have a computer at home. So either he was very forward-looking and was thinking about smartphones, which I don't believe. You can see that even someone who is in the industry can't really predict how disruptive changes are. Why? Because the pattern of innovations are as such that usually in the beginning it takes longer as you believe, and then it is much faster than you believe. I don't know whether you know the popcorn example, whether you ever cooked popcorns. I did that with my kids. You put the popcorn in the water, you heat the water, and for a very long time it doesn't happen anything. It just doesn't happen anything. And then the first corn pops up, and then again it takes a while, and then the second corn and fourth corn. Now, when you realize something happens and you start to switch off the electricity, it's too late, because it's just exploding. So the point is to understand where is the technology, where is the change in consumer behavior, where is the business model changing disruptively so that you are either acting now or you're too late? Because diffusion of technologies is faster and faster. That's one of the reasons why we see this disruptions coming even ever closer. And one of the main drivers is the development of bandwidth, which you see on this chart here, which is exploding, which is offering a whole set of new opportunities and services around. And here you also see it has taken a while until really we see that speed of change in terms of bandwidth. Now, the third statement is innovation has long not been a priority and a strength of financial institutions. Though on the left-hand side of the chart, financial institutions understand the importance of innovation. On the right hand, you see that that's a BCG study, amongst the 50 most innovative companies worldwide, you don't find any single financial institution. And this is not only due to external factors like regulation, it's also due to organizational complexity and to culture. And a very strong lack of mint and technology skills within banks, especially also within bank management. And you see that also on this chart here. What drives innovative companies is people, and what drives people is culture and energy and vision. So that's my last statement. What is key is changing leadership and culture, and at the same time, this is the toughest for banks, given where banks organizationally come from. That's my 5 statements to start with.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Setzer. And I'm just glad that I have 2 representatives of companies here which are innovating and not capitulating. That's for sure. It's the other way around. So both of you are trying to be at the edge of innovation. Also, you're working for a big organization. And so my first question would be for Mr. Faciola. And as I mentioned, you are working for Bank Sabadell, which is quite a big player in the Spanish market. I think about the 4th in the Spanish market. And you're expanding even to UK and US. And you are quite a very innovative bank. Just to give the audience a flavor of it, I've just picked 3 examples. It's not complete, so there are much more innovative things you already put in the market and in place. So in 2010, you were the first Spanish bank who put a banking application on the iPad. 2 years later, I think you were the first worldwide who puts a banking application on Google Glass. And just in 2015, you were one of or even the first bank in Spain who launched the open API for developers to help you really to be on the edge of innovation. And somehow, though, it's obvious that there is a lot of experience in your organization, and that you are really successfully doing innovation. Also, you are a big bank. And the question is really about what your bank already has done to become such an innovative bank. Well, I think this is interesting to know a bit about this. I know that we have not so much time, but maybe you can give a flavor of what your bank is doing to be at the edge of innovation in that market.
Good. The first thing I would like to say is that our bank, we always, the big companies at some time in its life has been a startup. So we have been a startup that we were born in 1881, which is a pretty long time. But at the origin of our bank is that some entrepreneurs at that time just created the bank to finance themselves in their expansion, in their trade to other countries, to other continents. So that's the origin of the bank, and we are pretty good at SMEs in Spain, and we are quite a good innovative bank. I usually say we are probably the most innovative bank in Spain, but the pity is that we are not just competing with other banks now. So absolutely, we are not the fastest company in the world. That's the point. And we are competing with companies like Google or Facebook or whatever. So customer expectations have shifted to a different scenario. So when people use our apps, for example, they don't compare them with, BBVA app or other competitors that we have in Spain. What they are, comparing is the experience that we are giving to them with the Facebook app or the Twitter app or these kind of things. So that's the kind of thinking out of the box that we are trying to keep inside our company. So at the end, you were mentioning that this is not a technology question. This is a cultural thing. It's a people. So the people we have in the branches have been doing the same thing for the last 30 years or 40 years. So how can you manage them to change into a different paradigm? That's not easy. So our approach is we are developing like a completely independent and autonomous scenario, spaces, dynamics, and people coming from the startup world working together with the people that have been building the bank the last years. And that's the key point. I think if you want a cultural change inside your organization, you have the people experience real different ways of working. Once they have experience, I don't know, design thinking, agile methodologies, this kind of thing, they don't want to go back to the oldest way of working in the bank. So that's pretty much.
I think what I know is that you already pretty much implementing some special things there to really change the mind and to really change behavior and the culture in your company. But we come to this later, I think. As I mentioned, Mr. Setzer, you are somehow caring for the digital agenda of the biggest state bank in Germany, and beside that, you are also a member of the advisory board in the Sparkassen Verlag, and if I'm not right, you already also were responsible for launching quite innovative solutions, Pay Direct, in Germany on behalf of the whole Sparkassen organization, which is, I think, quite a challenging job, as we all know that this is really a huge organization. And I think it would be interesting for all of us, as you somehow made or has the possibility to make all this experience, what would really, or what were the barriers you are facing really to make this innovation at the end of the day happening and go to the market?
Well, I think in general, regarding banks, and I said this a little bit before, banks are used over the last 10, 20 years to reduce risk. We also have reduced risk significantly. We have basically shrunk our balance sheet by 50%. We have reduced risk, and a little bit a burnt child fears the fire, and there's a very strong mentality to reduce risk, which is not something which is driving particular innovation. And you see that all over the place. And so we have to massively understand this is not black and white. I believe also regulation is not black and white. We will not turn back the fact that regulation is increasing, that we have to be thoughtful in what we're doing. And that there is a risk also that some lawyers are somewhere who find something in your general conditions in order to bring you to court. But however, there's always it's never black and white. So you have always room to change things, to drive things forward. And also in PayDirect, the first and important thing is a sense of urgency. Change requires a sense of urgency first. And that's why also banks are so slow in innovation, because there was no sense of urgency until a couple of years ago. Margins were high. Usually banks were earning good money. And also for the German banks, there was a sense of urgency. Either we act now and we offer and we go back to internet payments, or PayPal and others will take it anyway. And that was the main reason why all German banks, the savings banks, the cooperative banks, and the private banks said, no, we have to do something together. And we are strong, we have the client relationships, client trust in banks. that has still not changed. Clients prefer to do mobile banking with their bank, not with someone else, because they trust that their banks know how to deal with sensitive data. However, it still is a very, very a big project, and we have done it in some way as we typically do it. It's too complicated. We have agreed a process with the German regulator, the Bundeskartellamt, the competition, the competition group, which is much too complicated. A dealer has to make many contracts with many different pricing structures with all the banking associations to avoid a monopolistic situation in a market where the banks have no market share at all. PayPal is a monopolist, if we can talk about it. But what I want to say is that, of course, our lawyers have helped us to make terms and conditions complicated, and they have their reason to do. But as I said, there is no other way than starting and doing it. Again, the longest way starts with the first path. So we have created it now, and now we have to become better. We have to become more entrepreneurial. We have to become take more risk, and by this we're going to become more innovative.
Okay.
But again, to the first point, and this counts for every company, we first have to have a sense of urgency, then we need a vision, and then we connect on it.
Just to go on one of 2 points you just said. So you said innovation there must be an urgency, and there must be somehow kind of, you can't avoid it. And you talked about regulation, and many bankers say regulation kills innovation, but they fulfill 2 of these aspects. Can't be avoided, and it's always a kind of a pressure. So would you say regulatory could be also a source of innovation? And
absolutely.
If yes, where?
Absolutely. Again, this is also not black and white again. Of course, regulation is a burden. It takes investment opportunities away. Some banks have 2/3 of their change portfolio is in regulatory projects. It also makes people afraid of making errors. That's the one side. The other side is it creates opportunities. Also in the technology, I mean, you see RegTech as an example. There's more and more FinTech, smart ideas, and good technology to be better in terms of managing your regulatory topics. The KYC, know your customer onboarding. I believe there's a big chance of innovation in those processes. And also at the end, many FinTechs also realize that regulation is not something which just comes by night. You have to work, you have to do a lot, and that also drives many FinTechs more in the B2B sphere. We see a strong interest of FinTechs to collaborate with banks because they realize scaling technology is difficult, and also managing regulation. So I believe this will also bring banks and FinTechs rather together than seeing them as opposants.
Okay. Yeah, coming back to Mr. Faciola, we just said we come back to a topic regarding change of behavior, change of culture in the company, and this is also something which is a combination what you just said. So it's also about collaboration with FinTechs or other partners, but you have and this is what I would at least also would not, or what I would like to talk about is you have a real good concept, interesting concept, how you combine this, so a concept of innovation cells you're already implementing in Bank Sabadell, and I think this is a very interesting concept to learn and to hear about, because this is a combination of collaboration with the external market and also to change the internal organization to be even more innovative. I think this is something interesting for the audience also to know about this.
Yeah. First of all, I would like just to point out, I really agree with you absolutely in everything. So change in big companies only comes from threats, external threats. So in this case, I would like to thank FinTech companies or even technological companies coming to our space, because it's the only way the entrepreneurs that we are in all the big companies can reach this golden mine of change in the big company. It's the only way we can make this organizational change. No? So, talking about regulation is a burden, absolutely, but sometimes it's just an excuse, an internal excuse not to change again. So we have to think more out of the box in the big companies, trying to think like startups are doing, trying to identify customer needs, tendencies, etc., in order to build new solutions. And we'll see if those solutions fit in the current regulation or not, or we have to change sometimes that model. But anyway, what we are trying to implement now in the bank, in Sabadell Bank, is absolutely a mix between what we call second-time entrepreneurs that are collaborating in some specific projects inside our agile cells inside the bank. So what we are building now are small startups, in fact, mixing people from inside the company, entrepreneurs, with people coming from the startup world and working together, in an agile methodologies, trying to think in this way of which are the tendencies, which are the needs of our customers, and how can we build solutions for them. That's the key thing. And the key point of this is we have to keep all these resources autonomous, independent, technologically, even of space, etc., from the bank. You have to keep them protected from the organizational tendencies that we have.
Okay. As I said in the beginning, 20 minutes are fast and not much. So we are already at the end of this already just started discussion. I think we already touched only some aspects of it. So I would like to, as I said in the beginning, are there any questions from the audience to our two experts here on the panel?
Question, but we're really over time here, so briefly, very briefly.
I thought Mark made an interesting observation about the fear of risk inhibiting innovation, but then we talked about the example, or you talked about the example of, sorry. I thought it was an interesting observation about the fear of risk inhibiting innovation, but then the example we talked about, PayDirect, is that really innovation, or is that just response to innovation of others, and thereby, in a way, the fear or the risk that somebody else takes our market anyway? Is risk in the end, or refocusing risk, the only way to get the big banks to innovate anyway by looking at it a different way?
Yes and no. Of course, the product is not innovative. We have to agree on this. Others have done it before, and PayDirect is not, from a product feature perspective and from a client view, is not yet a real innovation. That has to come. What is innovative is to do something with all banks in Germany, to act as an entrepreneur and to do something new. That has been innovative. In a sense, the process was innovative, the product not yet. It has to come still. So we have to do much more, and we have to be more risk-friendly in order to make that product more attractive and to be really something where you all here can raise hands when I would ask in a few years, are you paying with PayDirect, be it in the internet, be it on your mobile phone, or be it at the point of sale. So let's talk about that in a couple of years from now. And then I hope I can say it's really innovative.
Yeah. So
Let's
thank
talk
you very
about
much. We have to come
on
to
the
an end.
sidelines. We have a networking area set up by the main stage where you can talk about this, ask your questions. I know GFT has a stand, and they will be happy to answer any of your questions and interact with you. Thank you very much to our panel for getting this fabulous conversation started today.